This is not the black magic, but this is something that you can learn from scratch.
I'm seeing more and more job ads that are either suggesting or even requiring some extra no-code related skills. That's a whole new field of possibilities that open up. So, of course, it's also important to stay up to date. As a program manager, as a designer, you can really build this to your need without having to be a developer.
For me, it's also like being a kind of a detective, looking for solutions. As you compare that to building from like using Lego, solving puzzles.
Airtable, Make, and SendGrid. I love this tool. I mean, I have to disclaimer, I'm an Excel lover, so Airtable is like Excel on steroids for me, so I love it.
You may feel that, okay, it's too difficult for me, but step by step you will become a pro or a ninja.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's podcast. We are meeting here today to disenchant no-code tools and automations and to talk a little bit more about how to learn to use them and not to go crazy in the process. My name is Natalie Pilling. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of DareIT. DareIT is an educational platform that provides mentoring and online training programs for women who want to change their career to the tech industry. We also work with IT employers to help them build a more diversified workforce and to help these women to land a job in the process. Over the last 6 years, we have supported several thousand women and work with more than 50 top IT employers in Poland. And our programs are highly effective, as a study with Stanford University has proven, increasing participants' success rate or chances to gain a job by 50%. And we do all of this using no-code tools and automation. So today I'm joined here by my colleague, Anna Miller. Hi, Anya.
Hi, hello.
Who is a program manager of the DareIT mentoring program. And we're going to talk, as I mentioned before, about no-code in general, but also a very new, exciting program that we have launched and is about, no surprise, no-code tools and automations. Let's get started. So, one question I'm very often asked by people who have heard about this no-code tools and automations and this sort of magic related to it, and they wonder, how can no-code and automation be useful to me? What can I do with it? So, Anya, my first question to you today, how do you use it and what do you use it for? How does it make your life better?
Okay, so now I should prove that I'm not a magician, just a hardworking person using some tools. I believe that if you're managing a program with many participants, like in the case of the mentoring program, it's almost 300 people each year, and they are in different roles, so you need to use some automation to make it efficient. As you know, when I joined your team, I didn't know anything about automations. Probably I didn't even hear the word. So I started from scratch, and I feel that now I really enjoy doing that. Of course, we use that in many areas, and let me share few of them today and explain how we use that.
Maybe I can interrupt you for a second, Anya. Sorry about that. For our audience, just so you know, we're going to use the words no-code tools and automation. They are, of course, closely related. They're a little bit different. No-code is often referred to in the context of maybe rather building something new, while automation, we're often using it when it's about automating some workflows and some processes. But as mentioned, they're very closely related. So when you're going to hear about no-code, probably we'll talk a little bit about no-code and automations. And if you hear us talking about automation, it includes also some no-code tools. So if you'll be doing some Googling, you'll find these are often used interchangeably.
Yeah, true.
Back to you.
So my favorite one, I think, is Airtable, which allows us to manage a lot of data. We have a big data set that with data of participants of the program. And here you can see, because now we are doing some evaluation of the program, so we ask mentors, mentees to fill the evaluation form, so to share some insights about the program, but at the same time, for example, like here we are asking them if they would like to share some testimonials with us, or also take part in an interview. So as you can see, I have a lot of data. Different people gave different answers. So how do I deal with it? Do I send like separate emails to like every one of those person? Of course I could do that, but it would take like a lot of time. So what we can do is to use some NoCode tools that are linked with our Airtable database, and based on that build some very useful automations that can help to send the right email to the right person in the right moment. And the first example here is that, for example, I asked mentors if they would like to take part in an interview, sharing some insights with us, and some of them said, of course, we would like to take part in the group meeting. Some said that they would like to take part in individual conversation. So based on those answers, I can send them dedicated email with some special links, so they can, for example, decide when they would like to take part in the meeting. And now I'm going to share with you how the thing looks like, how we use Make to do that. So for example, if someone says that, okay, I would like to take part in the interview, in the group interview. So this record goes from Airtable to Make. We use Make very often to as no-code tool, and based on the role in the program, if this person is a mentor, a HR consultant, or a mentee, it sends email with the right link. If they click the link, so
maybe I'll stop you for a second. That's what you can see on this graphic. As you said, we have those three roles, right?
Yeah.
That's why we have those three paths. And also, just to clarify, we'll talk a little bit more about tools later on. But the two tools that Anya mentioned, so Airtable and Make. Airtable is, as also mentioned, a database, so it allows you to manage data, as the word says, of different types, and it's often the sort of core of many of the automations that we do, because for most of the automations we need data. And from there we pass to Make, which is the second tool that Anya mentioned. We'll also talk a little bit maybe later on, which actually allows you to do things with the data that we have in Airtable.
Yeah, and if you go to Make, it's like building something from scratch. It's like doing some puzzles. As you can see, we have different modules here, and based on our needs, we can create anything you can imagine. I think we will show more later. So this is like very simple automation that allows, based on the role of in the program, allows to send email with the link to the form that allows them to choose a date of the meeting. We have meetings for mentors, for consultants, and for mentees. So it allows us to send them personalized emails with their own name in it, but also with this dedicated link, which is a link to the form with dates for mentors meetings. And it's going to be sent every day at 3:40, as you can see. So I don't have to check every day if there are new answers based on the date that the form was the initial form was submitted. It sends the next email with some additional information. And what I like about it is that it saves my time, because I don't have to check database. I don't have to send those emails manually, but at the same time, it is personalized. And also after they confirm their participation, they get also an email with the link to the meeting and a reminder about the meeting some time ago. So the thing that I did in the past manually and took me a lot of time, now it's automated using this great tool. And of course, we can do more probably here as well if you are more fluent. Because one of the things that you may think that is disadvantage of no-code tools or automation is that it's not personalized because it's done with some tools. But I believe that doing this, you can have more communication and understand people's needs even better. You can send more emails, ask more questions, do better onboarding. And of course, people answer to you, so you have the chance to also talk to them. And this way, I can think you may build some tailor-made experience for each of them.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about this because one of the reasons why we don't talk so openly about the fact that actually most of our processes involve automation in no code is that some people feel that that means there's a machine talking with them, and they don't like it so much, especially if they want to participate in a program which is also built around the community, like in DareIT. I disagree, and you already talked a little bit about that, how you can use these tools to improve customer experience, because I assume one thing is that this frees up a lot of your time, so it leaves some more time for you to focus on the actual interaction with people. It allows for personalization, as you said, so somebody's receiving reminders only for those things they should receive reminders for, and not for all the other things that maybe all the forms they have already completed, but maybe you have some additional thoughts. I know you're a big proponent of actually talking about the fact that this allows you to give a better experience to the participants.
That really helps to build the experience, to make people feel that they get what they need, not some, as I said, some random messages, some random questions. It's everything. We have everything linked, so we know quite a lot about our participants, and based on that, can build some more complex automations. And this is also, I think, how it works. So you start from something really simple, and then based on the experience, based on bigger knowledge you have, you can propose and try to do something more complex that helps you also to save even more time, because now I can see that we started with a very simple automations, and now they are much more complicated. And of course, you need to test, you need to spend more time to prepare that. Maybe we'll tell more about it later. You have fuck ups,
yes,
of course. But yeah, if you finally find a right way to do it, it's efficient, and also it's fun. Maybe it's now time for me to ask you how you use automation at your work, because you are the one who was my mentor, let's say, the one who introduced me to the world of no code. So how did it start? How do you use that?
Good question. How did it start? It started actually, as you said, it started by a simple use case, and we had this mentoring program, and we had hundreds, thousands applications for this program. It was starting with the applications, of course. Then we were accepting about 160 participants to the program of mentees. On top of that, 160 mentors to support those mentees, 20 HR consultants, partners, etc., which reached the scale of having to support 500, almost 500 people in a program. And we were 2 people working part-time on this program. So in particular, one of the toughest part of this managing this whole thing was the recruitment process. And actually, just to give you some insights, the way that the program, this mentoring program that we are referring to works is that as a woman who wants to change into the IT industry, you can apply to specific career paths. Let's say you want to be a front-end developer, so you apply for a spot in the program. And on our end, we recruit mentors for those career paths that are available in the program. And then those mentors, they get to choose their own mentee. But before they do that, on our end, we do a pre-selection of the candidates. So that means reviewing 1,000 or more applications first, marking them as reviewed, not reviewed, passing them to some sort of shortlisted profiles for the mentors then to make their final choice. And then we have almost what we had in the first time we used this automation, 160 mentors who all needed to review those hundreds of applications and make a decision. We used to do this in Google Sheets, and it was an absolute nightmare. If you ask any mentor who participated in our first editions with this, they all remember the Google Sheet.
They are still coming back.
They are coming back. I think it's only thanks to Airtable and the improvements we've made since. So we had this case, basically. We had to manage a lot of data. We had to manage interaction with a lot of mentors, mentees, and we started by thinking, how can we automate, how can we use tools to help us make this better, to help it make it more efficient, of course, but also to how to make the experience of the mentors better. So circling back to what you said of using these tools to make things better, and that's basically how we started. That's how we started to use Airtable as the main tool. It was pretty simple in the beginning, and from there we went to adding more and more building blocks on top of that, and then going into the program, helping us communicate better with the participants, making sure everyone has the right information, and yeah, basically that. And what I wanted to add in terms of how can you use these kind of tools to make experience better, one thing is, of course, a big thing is getting the right information to the right person at the right time, so personalizing that. But the other is also to empower people and to make them more independent. So apart from the mentoring program, as you know, we also have these educational programs called the challenges, where participants get to dive deeper into building a project on a specific career path, let's say as UX designers. And here we also use, of course, a lot of no-code tools and automations. And here we are engaging mentors, for instance, in giving feedback and reviewing works of specific participants. And we use Airtable to provide some sort of dashboards for them so that they can have a very easy overview of all the participants and all the works that they still have to review, that they have reviewed. They can track their time so that they can then issue their invoices or get paid based on this. Normally, if we didn't have this, they probably would have to track their time somewhere on the side and some kind of sheet, put it together, link it together with kind of double check how many people they actually reviewed. They'd have to send it to us. We get information from many different people. So this is a way to make it easier for them to have everything in one place, to be able to do things directly in these views, and for us to manage the data on our side. You might wonder, maybe there are some tools to be able to do time tracking and to do all of those things. Yes, of course. There are time tracking tools like Toggle. That's what I'm thinking about. But again, they're not connected. You have to use different tools, and they're not personalized to the use case or the need that your company or your project has. So this is, of course, the power of these tools, that you can also make sure that your specific need as a program manager, as a designer, as an accountant, and we'll talk maybe in a minute about use cases, that you can really build this to your need without having to be a developer or even a designer. So
this is what I would add, that it's easy to use them. Yeah. You don't have to have this specific knowledge, and what is great that you can easily integrate it with other tools you have already used. So that's great, because the thing is also that we use a lot of tools every day. So if you have to use more in the taking part in the program, for example, the mentoring program. So I got this feedback that it's great that we have only like 1, 2, maybe 3. So they use every day. So it's not like they have to learn, they have to log in to many new places. It's an advantage.
You asked me what I use no-code tools for.
Yes. How do you use it?
Yes. I would say in an essence, it helped us to build our business, to help DareIT. So I mentioned before that we do all of this. Literally everything is based on no-code tools and automations. And I think importantly, it has helped us to go from a side project to actually a full-blown operation without having such big of a team. As I mentioned before, we were 2. Now we are now we're 5 or 4, depending on how you count. And and we're able to do all of that, all the parts of the business with no-code tools. So I wanted to show you maybe a couple of examples, because you can, or we use we use these tools on one hand on let's call them user-facing side, and also internally. So maybe I can show you.
I'm also really curious about those internal automations, because I know how it's working. It's working really well, but how is it done?
I think one you know very well. It's about collecting or registering for your vacation and stuff. So I'll show you that. Yes. And the other one is about a very hated process for everyone, which is collecting invoices, which I will show you in a second. The first example I want to show you is related to collecting payments, which is something that is, of course, relevant for most businesses and companies. So I'll show you two sides. The first one is as a user. So this is an example of one of the courses that we are running. It's dedicated or targeted at QAs and those that are preparing for an examination. They are on our website and they can decide they want to join the program. By the way, this website is built using Webflow, so it's not custom coded. And here you have the different pricing tiers. You say, oh, I really like the premium package, so I want to join it. So this directs me to my payment page, which is built using EasyCart and Stripe. Again, all no-code tools. I'm cheap, so I don't want to pay for this program. I'm gonna use my my code to get my discount, and great. I can decide to purchase my program. And by the way, I have already logged into EasyCart here. Thank you very much. I purchased the program.
That was really easy.
Very easy, very simple. Money spent, and great. Now I can then go to my email. By the way, I'm doing all of this as a user. Of course, not as Natalie from DareIT, but Natalie participating in the program. Great. I got an email which, I got an email which says, thank you very much. You have purchased this ticket. So I have my order summary. And I also get this automated email from DareIT, which is welcoming me and says like, hello, welcome to the program. We have this very nice, as you see, it's personalized. So it has my name and it tells me how I can prepare, sends me to a link to what we call the starter pack. And by the way, also built on Webflow. And this is basically how my experience as a user is. And I get all the information. I have my course here with all the programs and the lessons. This is how it looks for a user. Very simple, very easy, no single line of code.
And I think that the thing that you get an email just right away you pay makes you feel okay. It's done, it worked. So you don't, also from our perspective, it's important because if those emails are not, like people don't receive those emails, they always ask, oh, is everything okay? Exactly. So they do that very often in the night or really like late in the evening, and then they have to wait for an answer to the morning. So I think this is also really it also helps in improving the customer experience that way.
Exactly. And otherwise, as you said, there's a bunch of emails that are always the same question you have to answer, even if you have a template, but you still have to answer manually. So this all goes by itself. We haven't lifted a finger. On the other end, from a DareIT perspective, so here, this is, by the way, Airtable, how it looks like. So I have different kind of tabs where I can collect different kind of data. In this case, this is my view where I get all the purchases that have been made. So I can see here, oh great, Natalie has made a purchase. And through some other automations, I have another tab, which is sort of collecting user profiles. So I also have for Natalie, a new user. Natalie didn't exist before as a user, so I have a new user profile created. Done, simple. Now I have all the data in Airtable and I can work with this, but I don't have to, and the user gets a really nice experience. The second thing I wanted to show you, going a little bit more into detail. So you saw this view of the learning platform that you get access to when you have paid for a certain course. In this case, again, as mentioned, we are using Webflow, as you can see here. And the very nice thing is that I can have a template. And I can use this template for different courses. So, for instance, this is a course of mentoring QA course in a premium package. But I can use, for instance, we have another course for mentoring UX designers. So this looks a little bit different, as you see, but the structure is the same. So I can, on our end, quite easily personalize this without having to code or without having to do anything.
Great example of recycling.
Exactly. That's what we do here. It keeps it simple. This is how it looks to the user again. And internally, as I mentioned, it's really nice. By the way, this is Webflow. So I can manage many different courses and basically all from one tool without being an expert developer. And even without being an expert designer, because that could also be maybe scary for someone. So I'm not the best on visual things. When you ask me to create designs, it looks like somebody got punched in the face.
Made in paint?
Yes, exactly, in 1993. But you have a lot of templates, for instance, for Webflow that you can use and that you can just slightly change. So this is the case, for instance, with this platform. And one other final thing I wanted to show one thing that's also very nice is that the system, you can easily build it so that, for instance, you only get access to the programs that you have actually purchased. So you'll see here a warning message. I was trying to access this page for mentoring for the standard package and says, sorry, you haven't purchased this yet. Again, without having to write any line of code.
I can imagine that if you build the first course, for example, and even with the help of the developer, and then you want to adjust it to the other one, so you would have to wait for the person to rebuild it.
Yes.
And this way, using no-code tools, you can just prototype, check if it's working or not, add, remove very easily in your own time without waiting for anyone else to do that. That's the big thing about it, I feel.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, one thing is to add sections or even some features to your website, but even just changing the copy, right? Like sometimes you want to slightly change, maybe your marketing team wants to slightly change the way you talk about a program. And if it's custom coded, yes, of course, you can change it in your HTML, but then maybe it screws up the way it looks, so it screws up your formatting. So this is an extremely empowering tool. First of all, so it makes you faster and more efficient because it's quick, but also it allows your whole team to work together because you don't need to have a very technical background to do that.
Okay, so continuing on the topic, who can take advantage of no-code and automations? Only those automation ninjas, like let's say you or maybe I, like in the making process, but yeah.
A stupid answer, or maybe not so stupid. Everyone, I think, can take advantage of no-code tools and automations. I think we'll talk a little bit later about learning these tools and maybe what are some requirements. Spoiler alert: there aren't really many, so so don't be scared. But I would say that in general, in my mind, there are always two use cases, or main use cases for no code. One case where it's about building new products, or products maybe is a big word, but new things, let's say. And the other is where you want to automate workflows. So you want to eliminate some manual processes and effectively do more with less. And both of those you can do either for your job, so for your professional life, or actually in your personal life as well. So just to give you some examples what I mean. In professional life, let's say you're a designer or a product manager, and you want to launch a new feature or actually a new sub product. to your suite of products, and you want to kind of get a understanding of the interest from participants. You want to do a little teaser, so you might want to have a landing page with some kind of a form or a very simple flow of things for the user to do. In a, let's say, traditional way, without no-code tools, you would probably design this or sketch it out, and then you would have to wait, or you would have to have a developer assigned, or you would have to have the skills, learn the skills to code this. With no-code, you can do all of that by yourself in a pretty simple way. You can use Webflow, you can use Airtable, you can use Make, so all the tools we have just talked about. You don't need a million different tools. The basic set is quite sufficient. And it makes you independent. It makes you faster, and you just get it out the door. And then, of course, if you want to scale it to more users, you want to make it maybe a little bit more stable. At some point, there's an issue with no-code tools, but at that point, once you know what you want to build, you can you can then decide to build it in a custom way. But before, you have this chance not only to try it, but actually to tweak it very easily as well with these no-code tools and automations. Same thing if you're in marketing. Usually you will probably be using quite a few tools already, and you will have your data spread across different ways. I don't know, you're using maybe MailChimp, you're using Google Analytics, and maybe there's also some data in your systems about users and purchases. And you need to somehow bring this data together to figure out and to analyze whether your marketing activities are bringing the yield that you're looking for. And with no-code tools, you can quite easily connect all those sources, bring them together, for instance, in Airtable, and even then trigger some actions in all of these other tools, but from one central place. Talking about maybe more operational roles like finance, I think nobody likes to collect invoices, or nobody likes to put together data for payroll, and with automations, you can really nicely put this together. For personal life, of course, if you're a freelancer, you might want to use the same invoicing flow, but you can also use it, I don't know, I know, for instance, Katja, our colleague, another program manager in DareIT, she's built also a huge fan of no-code. She built a whole automation that she has a set of recipes she likes to cook. And she can select, for instance, what she wants to cook this week, and it automatically creates her a shopping list of all the things that she needs to get at the store.
I need to get this one.
It's great, no? And
Yeah,
click of a button,
great.
and it's there. Or maybe, these are some smaller things, but maybe your own product idea that you want to do as a little side business, or again, you want to make your own life easier, and you can really, really use that. And so I think you can use it where you are today, and I just wanted to mention this because this is something very relevant for the future. I'm seeing more and more job ads that are either suggesting or even requiring some extra no-code related skill set. So most obvious example, but as a designer, having a skill, knowing how to use Webflow is really, really valuable. And it's an optional thing in many job ads today, but I'm seeing that it's getting more and more as a required thing. And the second thing is that there are more and more jobs specifically about no-code. I don't want to use the word developers because maybe that's scary, but about a person who is building things with no code. And this is definitely the direction in which the job market and the IT industry is going to go, where you don't have to code to be able to build things. It makes it more accessible so more people can do it, but it also makes it cheaper because it's faster. So it's an advantage to companies today. So they're looking for more and more professionals in this space.
I can also see a lot of people excited about all of that. It's like the community around the tools, where you can, if you have any problem, you just go there, ask a question, and for sure, there were people who already like solve that, or if not, so they are very eager to help you, or if there is no solution, so just tell you, please send a request to the, let's say, Airtable, because that should be a feature. So it's really not, it's really nice. I like that about no-code tools. That's like the community is really open to help, but also you have a lot of sources of knowledge.
Yes.
And a lot of answers to common errors. So it's easy to fix if something happens.
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, I think that in this regard, the no-code community took the let's say code community as an example, because generally developers and the developer community is very much about sharing knowledge and connecting. You have Stack Overflow, which maybe now because of ChatGPT has lost a little bit of relevance, but still the essence is that it's very, very normal to ask a question when you're stuck on a certain problem, and people answer and they engage. And this is really a normal thing. And this is something that is the same in the no-code community. And I agree with you. This is actually how I often solve my problems. That's how often I learn and find new ways to do something. I Google it, and somebody probably has had this problem before, and somebody definitely has answered this kind of question. But to throw your question back at you, you talked a little bit, or you showed us an example of how no-code automation makes your life easier. Who do you think is someone? Who else can take advantage of no-code tools and automations, and what other uses can they make of it?
Yeah, from my perspective, it's a great thing to know when you're a project manager or program manager, especially if you manage a big group of people or employees or just participants of the program. So without automations, without no-code tools, I think it's now it's not easy to do it like smoothly. So that's one of the things I see now from the perspective that I should have used it in the past. It would be much more easier to work with other people, to also collect invoices using that, etc., as you said, because that was also something I hated. And when I talk with my friends also working in this area, so very often they hate Excel, they hate tables, but I think it's just a stereotype that it can't be nice to work with it. People, I feel it's also based on my experience that very often we don't know how it can be used, what kind of possibilities it gives us. So this is why sometimes goosebumps, because it feels like it's math, so I have to know math, or maybe I need to know programming to do that. It's not that. And from a perspective of our customers, I also can say that it's easier if we have, for example, a form to submit a contract or to submit like anything, and it's everything in one place. It's not like we use few tools, so now they have to understand, okay, it works differently, so how do I do that? So what I see we do is to try to narrow the number of tools we have, so people also are used to that, and for sure, like mentors who are from different backgrounds, developers, business analysts, scrum masters, they all use some kind of automations. They share that during our sessions. They also learn mentees to use them, because as you said, it's part of the portfolio now to know how to use those tools. Like sometimes they're very specific for the, like say, the branch, but to use Slack, to use because also this is something that you can call no-code tool, I would say. It's connected with most of our other tools, showing us, for example, if there is an error, telling us that there is a problem, like Notion, like Make. Today, I think this is something that's, if you know that, so it's also an advantage for you and when you're looking for a job. So they are also trying to do. I think, mentors telling mentees who are women who are entering IT is to show them that this is not the black magic, but this is something that you can learn from scratch, step by step. And I think this is the approach that also NoCode supports. That it's not that you will do the very complicated thing at the beginning. No, you will start for something really simple, but then you will learn about the possibilities, and soon you will be more fluent. So then you can improve what you did in the past. So yeah, that's it's maybe general answer, but I feel that, as you said, you can use that for recipes, you can use that for collecting feedback, you can use that to invite people for events. So everything you can imagine is possible with those no-code tools. And I don't think it means that we are getting lazy. Some would say that, okay, so you're lazy, you don't want to do it manually. No, it's not that. I want to have time for something else. I want to have time to improve the program or a project or anything else. I want
cook the recipe.
Or cook, yeah, or spend time cooking and eating it with my family, and not to go everywhere with a piece of paper or the list on my phone that is really messy. Just use it in the best and the easiest way possible. And yeah, it's I don't think we should afraid that, even if it sounds maybe scary at the beginning. Yeah, but maybe another next question to you. How does NoCode work if you had to explain it to a 5-year-old? Yeah, we have a lot of children around our team, so probably they will ask questions soon. So how would you explain?
My son's 8 months, so maybe a bit too young.
I think my 2-year-old nephew, he could ask questions.
Yes, very good ones probably. But why?
Why
so first thing, as you are, it's not black magic. I think that actually, in essence, it's pretty straightforward, and the underlying logic is effectively that you have something happens, an event, or in automation language, a trigger. So something happens, which causes something else to happen. Yeah?
So like a physics.
Correct.
Action, reaction.
Action, reaction, exactly. And the way I like to think about it is like going back to kids and play, like when you build dominoes, right? You put them all one domino after the other, and when you don't do anything, hopefully they stand. Yeah, they don't
Sometimes
fall.
the wind.
Exactly. But they stand, and then you have something like the wind or a child running around, kicking the first domino, and automatically this makes all the other dominoes move and do something. So again, you have a trigger, some action that starts, and automatically other things happen. And of course, the dominoes, they can take different paths, they can do different things, they can diverge, they can come back together. And effectively, that's the essence of one automation: action, reaction. And then if you want to create a whole system around this, you take like Legos, to stay in the theme of play, and actually it fits quite well. I think it's fun, at least for me.
I think it's a very accurate comparison.
So you take all of those different automations that you've built, like little Lego blocks, and you put them together, and you make a system. And you can either go and build according to the design,
like the Hogwarts castle.
Oh yeah, oh. Yes, that's a very good example for our listeners. Anya and I are huge Harry Potter fans, so the Lego Hogwarts collection is a big hit. But that aside, so you put either you follow a certain design, a certain template of all these automations together, or you want to be creating your own creation. So you arrange those Lego bricks into a system and into a creation that you came up with. But not to keep this so theoretical, I wanted to show you a little very simple example of what this action-reaction...
What the trigger is, actually.
Exactly, and one of the most common ones, actually. So let me show you my screen. So we are back to Airtable, our our favorite tool. And we have a very simple automation here. Just to give you some quick introduction, in Airtable, in general, we're using two main features: data and automations. Data is what Anya was showing you earlier. So this is where you collect all your data, and automations is where you can implement automations on that data. Pretty straightforward. And here we have an automation. Airtable makes it even very nice for us to follow, because you see here, you have a trigger, and then something that is a trigger, and then you have an action and something that is an action. And by the way, you can have, I'll show you in a second, many different actions. So in a trigger here, so this is what's actually causing the action. In this case, we have a trigger that when something enters a view, so if something happens in Airtable, without scaring you too much of all our different views, I need to find the right one.
You will start with one view, and then you will just build on it.
Exactly. So actually, you might remember before when I made this purchase of a mentoring QA course. So my record, as a user, of course, not as a DareIT team member, my record is here. So if my record enters this view, a view is a collection of data. This is the trigger. Now we go back here. Something happens in action. In this case, we send an email. So if you remember, we got this personalized email sequence, and basically that's it. And in this email, I won't go into the details because of it, maybe too much information, but in this detail, I can add some what we call dynamic fields. So this is how we can personalize, as you said. We can add the user's name. We can say which package they purchased. We can add some specific links, etc. And basically, in essence, that's how all automations work. You have a trigger, you have an action. And then here you see a list of all automations which we have currently built for this Airtable base. You put them all together to build a total product or no-code suite, as you want to call it.
Yeah, and I think what is great is that's like, for example, for the mentoring program, here is the challenges. But in the mentoring program, every year we just review all of those automations and check if we can do something else or something better based on the experience. So without any additional help, maybe some helpers from the internet if it's something really complex or complicated. But also you can get some ideas from people. And as you said, there are some templates. So also they give you some ideas what else you can do, which is great. For example, in Make, I checked a few weeks ago about what you can do with Slack, and it's like dozens of them. So like, wow.
It's actually scary sometimes. I think that the goal in essence is not to know all the tools and exactly everything that all the tools are able to do. I think it's about building your confidence in knowing how to figure out how you're going to implement this no-code tool and automation, right? So that I think that now probably if I told you we need to find a solution to this and this, you probably wouldn't know from the back of your head. Maybe you don't know the answer right away, but you know how you're going to solve or how you're going to find an answer to that. Either by the things you already know, by knowing where to look, Google, Airtable forums,
ChatGPT.
Exactly. So I think that's actually one of the important things when, or the things to build when you're starting. And I think it's actually one of the hardest things to do because it's also related to confidence, of course, but it's also related to really understanding how does it work under the hood. And at least that's what we're trying with this course, to help you become independent, actually, and to be able to implement whatever you want to build with the building blocks that you have.
I heard this great advice some time ago that you don't have to know everything, which is maybe so simple and so obvious and like, but not to me. There are some people who really would like to know everything at once and just to be the best in that. So yeah, I think this approach really, it's great to have this approach when you start to do no code or anything else. But here it's obvious thing because as you said, there's so many possibilities That's even like after a year, you will still have something to learn, which is great. Of course, the tools also have developed,
Yes, exactly.
getting more and more complex. So new things are coming also based on the people's requests. So that's great, because sometimes like, why they don't have that, why they didn't think about it. And so yeah, you can also be part of this change.
Community,
Just
yes.
the community, letting them know, okay, but maybe we can have this feature. This is something that I really would like to use. So yeah.
Yeah, I think a point that that you mentioned, that these tools are also changing rapidly. I mean, that's a cool thing, because you can really see it grow. Our first time I used Airtable was 2021, so it's 3 years ago, and it's already completely different to how it was then. So that's also cool to grow with the tool. But also new things come up. So now this whole thing about generative AI, and how can you leverage that, for instance, and including ChatGPT in automations. That's a whole new field of possibilities that open up. So, of course, it's also important to stay up to date, and I think it's important not to know everything, but to understand what are my possibilities. It of course helps also, I think, to get inspired by other people's use cases. So I don't know, seeing how others have implemented or have used NoCode and automations to do certain things, to show you what possibilities there are. But I think it's not important to remember exactly step by step, because if you understand the underlying logic, then you will be able to implement it.
I don't know if you saw this meme that's someone says, okay, you can't be a doctor only by reading an internet, and then this programmer like doing this kind of look, why, what? Sometimes it's really difficult to understand that people who are like developers also,
Yes.
they use internet for help, because they don't remember everything also.
Yes. And you don't need to.
You don't need to. There are someone can create some better solutions, so you can do based on that. And also, I think what is important to me is like that you can be better and better by doing.
Yes.
And by practicing. So yeah, I think that's the clue of the whole thing. That's you will be better soon, even if it's difficult at the beginning. Even if you think about yourself not as a person who can do this like structures, because of course first thing you can do is just to draw it on a piece of paper, just like that, and then try to find the right tool to do that. So so that's how it starts probably, but then step by step you will become a pro or a ninja.
I often write things on paper before. It really helps me to structure, and just like some boxes and arrows. So the abstraction level, it doesn't depend on the tools first, right? It's just to draw that out. So if you were to summarize, what do you think are the biggest problems or challenges when learning NoCode, and how would you address them?
I think sometimes I think the approach that you can have as a person, that's you are afraid of making mistakes, as you said, that you may feel that, okay, it's too difficult for me. But this is just temporarily. You have to practice, you learn to learn more. You need to make mistakes, probably a few at the beginning, to fully understand how it works. It requires time and patience, I'm sure. It's not like it will happen like that in one night, but nothing happens like that. So that's that. I think that was my biggest challenge. So yeah, but I think this is something that you just sometimes maybe just sit down and think, okay, I had a lot of fuck ups in my life in different areas. I had struggled a lot. I faced many challenges, but I always make it. So I can do it this time again. So yeah, maybe it's very simple advice, but I think it works all the time. And this is also something that I get from the participants of the mentoring program. They are also people who are learning something new. And it wasn't easy at the beginning, but after a few months, they feel more confident, even if it's not about no-code tools, about anything else. By learning, practicing, asking questions, making mistakes, learning from those mistakes. So that's the process of learning. So that would be my answer. And what about you?
I think one thing I already mentioned, and is the problem of not really understanding the basic logic of automation. So basically just going on some YouTube video or some community and just copying the automation, which of course is totally fine, especially in the beginning, because you need to start doing to learn. But if you don't then spend some time on really understanding what you have implemented, it's quite easy to run into issues quite quickly. First of all, you need to create a new automation, or actually the one that you have is sort of meeting your requirements, but you need to change it a little bit. If you don't understand the underlying reasoning or what's happening underneath, it's very difficult to then adjust it to your use case.
It's more difficult than to do it from scratch.
Exactly. Also, what if then you have a bug or you have an issue, you have an error? If you don't understand how it works, it's very hard to solve it, which, as I mentioned before, is why actually bugs are a great way to learn, because it really forces you to go into detail and to understand what's going on. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges. It takes time, of course, to learn, but I think it also takes effort. So again, my recommendation here is that when you're implementing something, you're copying an automation, again, totally fine, I've done it myself. Just take a moment after you've done it to go through it, and try to understand what you've actually done. The more you do that, then it's easy to start seeing a pattern. The second thing I think you already mentioned is being scared of doing something wrong. So I think that especially beginners, they think they don't know the answer, but actually somebody expert would know the answer. So it needs to be perfect. I just don't know. So either I can't figure it out, I don't know how to do it, or I spend hours trying to perfect it. So I think building the confidence that it's okay not to know everything. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay not to get it right at the first time. So in 99% of cases where I build an automation, the first time I run a test, something's wrong. Yeah. So, but I use this to tell me I'm much quicker at implementing a first draft, running a test, because the test will tell me where I'm wrong, rather than really spending a lot of time going through every single one. So this part about being scared to make mistakes, being scared of not knowing everything. And a third thing, and I know that I'm also guilty of this sometimes, it's wanting to do too much at once. So wanting to pack too many things into one automation. And it quickly gets actually difficult to really get it right. Or, I mean, you can do it, but it will just take more time. So I think it's an art to start from the simplest case possible, and from there to kind of develop the automation. We had it as an example with our with how to get started, with how we started as DareIT with automation in general, just to start with a small part and from there to build higher. So yeah, I think it's a matter of approach mostly, and kind of building confidence. So I think it takes both time, but it also takes a specific effort to do that. So we've thrown around a lot of different names of tools. Maybe to bring this all together, I wanted to ask you, which tools do you use on a daily basis, or which tools would you say, okay, these are your go-to tools, and why?
I have few, and I think I want to even use them more in the future, which is Airtable, SendGrid, Mic. This is what I use the most, and it really helps my work. So with many tasks, not only reminders, but also some kind of submission, form submissions, etc., and invitation to meetings, etc., they are like working really great. So they are great. And with Airtable, it doesn't matter how big your data set is. I mean, there are some limitations, but if it's 20 people or 300 people, it still works. So yeah, I think like on the top is Airtable, but yeah, also it has some extensions. So as you mentioned, I think this is the thing that we didn't mention, but also you have some other tools within a tool that help you to do things like send emails or create forms. So it's not like you have to do everything from scratch. It has also some additional features And so with Airtable, you can do really a lot. So that's my favorite one. And yours?
Similar. So I love to think about the fact that with 6 tools, basically I can cover running a business. So I would add Webflow on top of the tools that you've mentioned, because the power of Webflow is just amazing. Mostly of how independent it can make us from having to custom code something. And again, also thanks to templates that are available. So this is something I'm very grateful for myself. As mentioned, somebody else does the designing for me, and I can just adjust to my needs. I would add 2 more tools. The first one is Stripe, and actually we use it together with a tool called EasyCart, a Polish-based tool, which I love, by the way. And this is the tool that allows us to accept payments, manage payments, subscriptions. I always struggle with this word, which is of course a key part of any business. And on top of that, we have Slack, which you have mentioned, which is as a basis a very it's a communicator, right? So as a basis, I wouldn't call it necessarily a no-code tool. But in Slack, we bring together a lot of things. So we use it for error messages, and error messages sound so boring, but just like bugs and testing, they're for me essential. So this is like my outsourced brain. Yeah. So this is how I know I don't have to worry if there are any to check whether everything's working. True. Everything is working accordingly. I know if there's an error, if something is down, if there are any systematic mistakes, I will get a notification. So this is how I sleep peacefully. This is how I can clear up a lot of mind space. So that's one thing in Slack, but also we use Slack very actively in the educational programs and the mentoring programs. So we have a lot of automated messaging, a lot of automated things that are happening there that are providing participants to the right information, but also directing them to different learning materials, etc. Previously, we would have a manual person posting these messages on Slack, and now with Slack you can really nicely format messages and have a lot of automated workflows. Even within Slack, they have a lot of these things. So I would say that Airtable, Make, and SendGrid, as you mentioned, for very similar reasons. I have to say Airtable, also from my perspective, I love this tool. I mean, I have to disclaimer, I'm an Excel lover, so, Airtable is like Excel on steroids for me, so I love it. But I know it's just a very powerful tool, and on top of that, I find it extremely user-friendly. So also bringing back to what tool to start with, to anyone who's learning no code, if there's one, I would say start with Airtable. Yeah. It's so powerful. You can start very small. It's easy. There's a lot of templates also for Airtable. There's a lot of very active community. So, yeah.
And as you said, they have been changing a lot. As I mentioned, you can use formulas in Airtable, but for like now you don't have to do it manually. You can use some special tool dedicated to that. So you just say what you need and it creates formula. So it's getting easier and easier to use, user-friendly. That's something, the second name of Airtable.
That's very true. And actually, a bit of a digression here. I think that's a very key part of all no-code tools because they're designed to be used by non-technical, or non-technical is maybe the wrong word, but non-developers. Yeah. So they're often designed with a good usability in mind. So to take away a little bit maybe the fear of using them, they're designed for someone who is not a programmer. And by the way, we will be linking the list of the tools in the description, so you don't worry, you'll have a direct link to all of those. I didn't get a chance to show you the two automations I really wanted to show you in the beginning, and I know you also had a few more examples in store, and I think it would be nice to share them. for listeners who might have a little bit more context now, what
Okay.
automations are
Makes
and
sense.
what they do exactly, so that we are not just showing some random screens with random tools. Would you like to start?
Yeah, maybe I share the one that's we prepared last year, and like then it was something totally like magical for me. So as I told you, we have this evaluation process of the mentoring program right now, and we are giving certificates to mentors and like experts in the program. So how it works is that they submit a form in Airtable. So you can see this is like the form. They look really nice. That looks really nice. So when they do that, the record goes to Airtable, and based on that, it creates a certificates. Oh, where do I have them? Oh, it's here. Okay,
it looks complicated.
it looks complicated. So let's say the mentor submits a form, the record goes to Airtable, and it triggers the whole process of creation a certificate, which means that I don't have to do it manually. I don't have to check the view and check, okay, so another person sends a form, so I have to now add the like name of this person to the certificate. What it does is that it takes the record from Airtable, checks if it's a mentor or a consultant, because we have like different roles, as I mentioned, and based on that, it adds first and last name of the person and the path that she was a mentor in to the form. Let's say that the person who submitted the form is an HR consultant, so she will get a certificate with her name on it. And so this is something that the automation takes from Airtable, the first name and the last name of the person, and put it here, and sends it to the person. So it happens 100% automatically. I don't have to do anything about it. Of course, it may happen that someone put the wrong name or started with a small letter or something like that, but it happens very rarely. So I think I love this one, because imagine to issue certificates for 150 people in Polish and in English, so it's 300. It's not possible to do it in a reasonable time.
You would just do that basically for the last 2 weeks of the program.
That, yeah, but yes, it would take a lot of time. So this is one that I really like. The other one is, for example,
sorry to jump in here, Anya. This is an example which I think is great. It's a bit like a time tracking I mentioned before. So of course there are other tools. So you have, for instance, Toggle for time tracking, and I know there are tools for creating certificates. But they can be quite expensive, or they cannot be well tied in. So you could build this using some other tools, which for some cases will actually be just fine. Or you have the freedom and the flexibility to create it exactly like you want using the automation and NoCode tools.
Yeah, maybe I can show you here how the template looks like. So we have two fields that should be taken from the Airtable, which is mentor ID and mentor full name. And after the automation worked, it looks like that. So it's really simple thing. Took us some time to figure this out, but now it really helps.
It was a team effort. I think everyone was involved on this
I think
one.
so. Yeah, I was the last one who joined that. And for example, the other one is that invites people to the events. So also after they confirm the participation in the mentoring program, so as you showed that in the challenges, they get an email with basic information about the course. So in this case, it also sends an invitation to Google Calendar, so everyone can add it to calendar, so not to forget about an event. Also, because they have different dates, so there is a training for mentors and another one for consultants. So it also has to check who this person is, what role in the program she has, and based on that sends an email. If there is an error, anything can happen, so it sends us a Slack message that there is an error, please check it, because someone didn't get the invitation. So something that also really helped me, because it's not like everyone confirms at the same day. They are doing it on their own terms. So someone does it let's say on Monday, someone on Friday. So this way they can get this invitation right away. And it also helps, I feel that it helps them to take part in the event because they have it in the calendar. So something that looks maybe complicated, the logic is really simple, but great one.
Actually, this is a great way to show talked before that it's very simple. It's action reaction. Of course, then you can go into more the difficult cases. Here this case, like in the previous ones that I showed, you have these different paths. So of course you have action reaction, and then you can have conditions or filters, so that it's not that the same action results in the same reaction for everyone. So you can say, actually, if somebody meets a certain condition, I want them to get this action. So they should get, I don't know, one kind of calendar event. If they meet another condition, because they are not an HR consultant but a mentor, they should get another calendar event, or they shouldn't get a calendar event at all, right? So you also, of course, the deeper you go, the essence of it is that you have this action reaction, but then you can really easily steer which actions are going to be carried out for whom, to go, as you mentioned, into this personalized approach.
And also there are different ways to do it, because I can imagine that I could do it also like 3 automations out of it.
Yes.
So there are different like many ways to do that. So
and I think that's something important also when you're learning, that I think it can sometimes be overwhelming to think that there are so many ways to solve a certain certain problem or to create a certain automation. And I think that especially if you're just starting and if you're junior, you may think that there's the perfect way or the right way to do it. But actually, in most cases, there is no right way. You can solve it in so many different ways. Of course, you can solve it in a more complicated way. You can solve it in an easier way. But it's not like you would go to someone experienced, a mentor, and they would show you the one way. They would show you one of the ways, and most beginners will be able to figure out one of those ways, even if it's more complicated, because as we know, the simplest is usually the hardest to come up. But even many of those automations, we started usually in one way, and then we either added something or we took something out. We can refactor. But I think it's really important also this notion that there's not one right way, but there are multiple ways to get there.
I think we should forget the approach that we were taught at school, that there's only one way, and if you do the thing in the other way, so you probably get the lowest grade, which is what also I experienced. So here it doesn't work. You can do whatever you want, and just test, try, iterate, prototype, and have fun as well.
Yeah. And something that's also, I think, very helpful for learning and about this is that sometimes it may also feel that you build something, you build an automation, or you are actually stuck. And then you ask someone, and maybe this person's more experienced, and then within, 30 seconds, they're like, oh yeah, have you tried this? I love this. Have you tried this? Yeah. And in many cases, it solves the problem. And it can, I think, feel sometimes very kind of demotivating or make you feel bad about yourself that someone else figured it out so quickly. So I think 2 things to keep in mind. First of all, I think when you're working on something, you're so in it, it's really hard, especially if you're stuck, to see the bigger picture and to take a step back with a fresh eye and to then figure out the problem. So this person who comes from outside, they have this bigger picture view, and I think it's sometimes easier to just be like, have you tried this, or this seems to be off. And the second thing is that this other person probably would solve this problem differently, so that's how they are able to give you a bit of a different perspective to try something else. So I think as a starter, it really takes strength to not lose the confidence and be like, oh damn, I'm not good enough, or I'm too stupid, I don't know enough, and this person's so good and I didn't see this. Again, I'm so stupid. It's not the case. It just actually is one of the great things about working with someone else. Again, it can be somebody more experienced, but it doesn't need to be somebody more experienced. You can actually learn a lot and work very well with someone who has the same level of experience.
Yeah, also something that we got from school probably.
Yes.
Okay, and what about your automations?
I can show you.
I can you they're really complicated.
No, these are actually very simple. These are the 2. The one about the vacation request that you're a user of and you're wondering. So maybe I can share my screen. So basically, it's a very simple automation. It allows us to manage our vacations and sick leaves within the team. again, there are tools for this, but first of all, they're often with a lot of features we don't need. They are paid. We needed a very simple thing. Every one of us needed to be able to just report their time off. So we have our very nice page in Notion. Just as a side note, our whole team, we use Notion as
With the palm tree, because it's holiday.
Of course. So we use Notion as our general knowledge base as a team. There's a page, gives you some instructions, and here's a link to a form. You've seen forms Anya showed you, so this is essence a form built on Airtable, where you can select your name, your type of personal time off, that's why it's PTO, and add your dates. So let's say I'm gonna request a vacation for, I don't know.
He's not on Friday.
I'm going to request it, I think, way ahead. I'm going to request it for the 2nd of May. I want to have a long weekend. And it's going to be 1 day only. And I'm going to submit my request. Fantastic. Now, what happens on the other end? We have our nice Slack, where I get a message, hey, you've received a PTO request. So now I'm requesting something to myself, but let's say Anya requested it, there would be some message here on Airtable with a link, which I can click on, and maybe I'll go back to the other view. So this is basically where I can now see this is the vacation request which I have submitted. And then I can add, this unfortunately is still manual. I need to work. See, this is something that I still need to improve. I need to say how many days off this is actually going to be. And I can change my status to, I'm going to approve my own vacation, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to approve it. We wait a moment. And then at the same time, I'm going to get me as the person who requested the time off. I'm going to get an automated message. Thank you. Your request has been approved. This is your paid vacation. You still have, I don't know. Oh, great. Still have 24 days. I don't know where those 24 came from, but I still have 24 days.
Good for you.
Sounds great. I can go on.
You can pack your suitcase, right?
Exactly. I can pack my suitcase. See, this is where I also realized there's a little bug. As we talked about, there are bugs everywhere. But anyways, the essence is that in a very simple, with basically just with Airtable, the what's working under the hood is Airtable, Zapier, and connected this directly with Gmail. So and of course we have Slack for the message, and I can create a very simple flow without having to go back and forth, calculate the remaining days, etc. And that's
really useful.
And that's it.
Yeah, it's like, for example, from my perspective, sending an email to you, if you have a lot of emails every day, so there's a risk that you just miss it, or
and this is just easier. It takes me as a person who's been, again, sorry for the confusion, maybe because I requested the vacation and approved it at the same time, but as an approver, it's much easier to just change the status here on Airtable, just change the status, and that triggers. This is, by the way, the trigger. So by changing the status, you kick off an action and it sends the whole process. I can, of course, also deny the vacation, but which has a whole... Again, here, by the way, this is where we have the different paths. So if I change the status to a different, because I denied the vacation, it would trigger, of course, a different kind of automation. So that's the one I wanted to show you, the one you're familiar with. And one other one, which is one that I use every month. So I'm responsible in the company for making sure we have all our documents put together for our accountants. And as anyone who puts together documents for accountants, whether for the company you work for or for your own business, you all know this is a pain. Nobody likes to do this. Organizing them, etc., is not fun. So we have a neat little automation, which works effectively like this. We have a joint email, which is called invoices at DareIT.io, which is where all invoices are sent to. And from there, I can I have created a specific email address. For now, I called it accounting filing through Make. And I can forward basically any invoices that I want to put together into my package for the accountants. I literally just forward it. We see that in the attachment, we have this invoice. I'm going to send it. It's going to take a moment because this automation has a delay. But in essence, what it does two things. First of all, in a minute, it's going to upload this document, which, as you see here, has some weird file name, which none of the accountants would be able to understand what it is. It's going to upload it to my folder of costs for the current month, and it's going to give it a specific file name without me having to change a file name by itself. And it's going to give it the month that this invoice relates to and the supplier, so that the accountant knows, okay, this invoice is for that month and I should book it under the supplier. So that facilitates my work because I can just, at the end of the month, I just download this folder and that's sent to the accountant. We'll see it in a minute. And the other thing it does, we have this whole list of basically of list of all the invoices and to which accounting accounts this needs to be booked to. So actually now you see it here. There's a new record and clearly I made a mistake because it didn't update the name of the file. But
as we said,
we'll get
happens.
to the exactly it happens. 2 bugs and 2 automations. See, nobody's perfect. So what it creates, I saw here that first of all, we have the file in this folder, so I don't have to do anything about that. Ideally, it also changes the name of the suppliers, and normally it does. And the second, it creates a record in this Google Sheet that I have. By the way, I love Airtable, but for some things I still am using Google Sheets, so just a disclaimer. And then from here, I have a variety of other connections, and I don't want to go through the details of that, but in essence, I can literally just download this list of documents and I send to the accountant the package with all the documents and just a little printout. By the way, you should have a list of all these invoices, and that's it. Before I was going to email, downloading this thing, changing the file name, adding the name on the list, and all these kind of steps, and this is a much simpler way. I could actually even do it that automatically if an invoice is sent to the right email, it's automatically uploaded. I like to check the invoices first just to make sure they're fine. But this has actually, sounds like a very stupid little automation, but just to give you an example of what it helped us to do. I went on maternity leave last year for a few months, and as I mentioned, I'm generally responsible for these back office automations and tasks in the company. But for this period, my co-founder Alexandra, our team member and colleague, she was going to take over these tasks while I was off. Of course, on top of her other duties that she's doing as a co-founder and co-CEO, and actually, thanks to automations such as this, she was able to, it wasn't adding a big amount of extra work to her. So I was able to go on maternity leave peacefully. She was able to do this work without actually knowing too much how accounting, etc. works, because that's not her specialty. So we had the topic of reducing errors thanks to the automation, and everybody happy.
Everyone was paid.
Exactly. Everyone, I hope, was paid. All the invoices were filed. So, yeah, it just shows that these automations help us focus or be able to do things that we would maybe not be able to do otherwise, and to focus on the things that are important.
But it's interesting also, interesting thing that, as you mentioned now, that it can also help with if you need to share your task with someone else, or maybe you're going like for a maternity leave for a longer holidays or anything like that, and it's going to work. You don't have to explain a lot to person who is going to be replacing you or doing your other tasks. So I like that.
Yeah, and just to close this, because we are talking about how to learn no code and not go crazy, maybe seeing this automation on a first instance, and you're like, oh my god, the heck did she build there? It sounds so complicated. There's a Google Sheet here. There's some files. There's some renaming. There's some email I need to forward to. It took time to build this. Yeah. So I started with a problem, and that was the fact I wanted to not spend hours putting together documents for the accountant. So I started with, and the first thing was actually just forwarding these documents to a folder, so I didn't have to manually download them. From then I realized, okay, actually I'm always renaming these files. So I really made myself, I kind of went through the process and I wrote myself down what are the steps that I'm doing and how can I then step by step automate these things and implement them into the NoCode automation. But I wanted to digress maybe a little bit. You mentioned before, you said, in my previous program, I never even heard about NoCode tools. I didn't know about that. So it would be interesting, I think, for our listeners to hear a bit about your story, how you came to IT or DareIT, and how you came to use NoCode tools. Because as you said, before DareIT, you had never heard about it.
No, I think I knew about Slack.
Okay.
But yeah, it doesn't count because it was just to communicate, not a thing that you can use as a NoCode tool. Yeah, I worked on the project. I worked as a project manager in the culture field and then in the entrepreneurship support business incubator. So we were doing projects similar to this one, having a lot of participants of projects, registering, or sometimes we work with them for a longer period of time, as I made a mentoring program for women in maritime, only with 20 women, luckily for me. But from the perspective of today, when I know that how easy it would be to make it using tools, I'm like thinking, oh my God, what a waste of time. But yeah, when I started to work with you, it was, I think, a very fast path of learning it, because I joined at the beginning of the 5th edition of the mentoring program. So I remember when I first saw Airtable, I was thinking what that is. My only reference was Excel. So I tried to also find some similarities. But and it wasn't easy, of course, because it's something new, but I think everyone has to learn something from scratch, like many times in their lives. So if it's a language, or if it's I don't know, if you start to go to the gym, or if you want to learn a new, like if you want to change your job, so reskill yourself. So
Cooking.
If you learn to cook anything, you can think about anything,
recipes, yes.
Or riding a bike if you are 3 years old.
Yeah.
So
walking if you're 8 months.
Yeah. So it requires some time. It requires patience, and of course sometimes being detail oriented, because this is important. And I think in NoCode tools and automations that even a small change can ruin everything. It happened to me yesterday. So I spent an hour fixing that, but everything can be fixed. So that's the thing, and you learn also a lot from mistakes. And the first edition, I was working really closely to you, but then for the next one, I had to do most of the things by myself. And this is where I started to like really learn, because mostly based on some errors, because when it was working smoothly, I didn't have a chance to do anything with it. It was just working. But then when the error happened, so I had to spend time. Okay, so what's the reason of that? How I can solve that? I remember also writing my first function, because also this is something you can do in Airtable. So if you want to code a bit, you can. And I made a mistake. I was looking for the solution. Of course, it was like the problem with the comma. But I finally made it, and I remember being very like happy and satisfied with it. So now I don't like, I'm not afraid to do it. I made like a lot of those automations, some of them from scratch. I had to look for some like very complicated solutions, not the one we used in the past.
That's actually my favorite. When you or Katja come, you're like,
Yeah.
I implemented this automation. Can you have a look? Does it work? And I'm like, wow, I've never seen it like this. This is a really cool new use case. It's really amazing. I love that.
It's also good. It's also great to have someone else also doing that with you. So so you can share, but also you can ask questions. Okay, so how did you do that? So I did. This is the thing I really like about our work that we are like three enthusiasts of automations and NoCode that we can exchange knowledge. So yeah, it started like that from a person who like didn't heard about Airtable, Notion, Make, anything like that, to the person who now do it and become more and more aware about how great that is, how many possibilities it gives me, and really being excited about it, because even now after the second edition of the mentoring program, I feel that we can do much more and improve like for me, the most important thing I think is improve also the experience of our participants. As I said, we have a lot of people. We ask them a lot of questions. I've been working with them for the last 4 months, so it's a long period of time with a lot of questions, a lot of issues. We try to give them as much opportunities as possible, but to do that, you need to communicate efficiently. You need to gain feedback from them. You need to remind them about events. So also learning based on experience is also something that I really like here. So that's, I would say that's my story. I would say, like, who didn't like to be a Sherlock Holmes or a Enola Holmes? I don't know. For me, it's also like being a kind of a detective looking for solutions. As you compare that to building from like using Lego, solving puzzles. This is like, I think this is how it really looks. So if you have this, if you have that need to solve problems, so I think it would be perfect for you. If you don't like that, but you feel that you can use that and could make your work easier, that's also possible for you to learn. I don't have a background in technology, so it's still it's not about the past. It's more about if you want to learn.
Yeah, I think it's also really cool with these tools that you can find your little passion, or you can find what suits your skills and what you really like to do with this. So no code doesn't mean that you can live your creativity, visual creativity, let's say, but if you focus more on the front end facing things like, let's say, Webflow. If you're more somebody that likes to, I don't know, think about the very specific workflows and logic, you can focus more on the things, let's say, in the background, in the back end. So I think you can really, you don't need to be an expert or like you. First of all, you don't need to be perfect or really great at everything. You can really use the tools and to fit what you're good at. So just to give you an example, you mentioned before, visuals is definitely, and anything visual is not, or creating anything visual, it's not my strength. And to the point that I always used to say of myself, I'm not a creative kind of person, thinking about this image of the typical, let's call it creative, of somebody who's very good at drawing and making things look nice and beautiful. But actually I've discovered that I am creative, but in a different way. So I like to build things. True. I like to make things, and creating these automations also create is the word, right? So it requires creativity of how to solve a problem. So I think that one thing that for sure is a common theme is that I think you need to like to build something, and you need to like to let's call it solve a problem, whether it's in a more visual way or in a less visual way. That depends on what you focus on, but also what you're saying. Your problem was that you needed to manage communication with X amount of people. So how do you solve that with the tools, the tools at hand? So yeah, I think there's a place for everyone. And just to throw in, you shared your story. We have another team member I mentioned before, Katya. I also would like to share her story because it's I think similar as you. She had no background in technology. Katya was a preschool teacher, and she joined us to run the challenges program. So she's the other program manager, and she literally told me, Natalie, I thought I was too stupid to use a computer when she joined us. And now I think she's our bright, shining star in
Yes, that's
no
true.
code and automations. She outshines us all. And she's learned it very quickly, and she's doing great. And this is just another example that you don't need to come from a technical background. You can, if you're interested, if you're ready to get your hands dirty, you can learn.
I think this is here you can use this analytical thinking that I think everyone has. So this is one of the also I think this is also one of the things that is required in the work work environment today. Like, so you can also, I think, train this by using no code.
That's true. Yeah. So in essence, like, you don't need to be a programmer to learn no code. You can come from any background. You can be in any role. And I actually think that some of the roles, maybe before I didn't cover that so much, but one of the roles that I think actually would be a great candidate to learn no code and to use it in everyday life are assistants or virtual assistants. So you mentioned project managers and product managers, but also virtual assistants. They are usually, if you're you usually manage a lot of different things at the same time, different processes, different information. You're talking with different people. So I think no code is a great way to help you as a virtual assistant to reduce your manual work, make it less error prone, because one thing we also haven't talked about, by introducing no code and automations, not only can you do more and have more time for doing let's say the value, not value added things, but those things that maybe can't be automated, but also you reduce errors. Of course, there are always errors also in automation, but in general, it's more predictable. So I think as a virtual assistant, that's probably also, or a project manager or a product manager, you're probably quite organized and diligent, which I think are characteristics that help when you're learning and when you're using no code. So yeah.
About those errors, because you mentioned that it could be, you can think about building those no-code solutions as building, like doing like domino thing. So let's imagine that the cat enters the room. So about the fuck ups, what was the biggest fuck up that you had?
Oh man, I'll tell you about my biggest, but just to share here, I mean, I think fuck ups happen, and again, we're not afraid of this word, right? Yeah. They happen on a daily basis. As I like to tell Katya, it's normal, right? It happens to everyone, and whenever an error happens and she gets stressed, I tell her, listen, maybe you remember the time that mBank mobile app sent a test message to all of its users. So thousands of users got a gibberish text message because somebody was testing on production. Yeah, so it happens everywhere. As long as we are not charging our customers 10,000 zloty without reason, nothing to worry about. As you mentioned, I think fuck-ups and errors and bugs are a great way to learn. I think starters are often afraid of bugs and are like, I made a mistake, I'm not good enough, etc. But figuring out and solving a bug is a great way to learn, because you really need to try and test, and it shows you whether you understand how something works. And all of that to tell you about my biggest fuck up. I still get heart palpitations when I think about this. It was we were doing this famous recruitment process for the mentoring program. We had already basically those that were selected for the program, they were selected, at least in our system. So we were about to send out the confirmation emails to those that were accepted, and of course a rejection email with to those that weren't accepted to the program. And we have this failed safe in Slack that you also mentioned, that for certain kind of automations, we get messages on Slack, either whether there are errors or whether we have new applications or some of the, let's say, important automations. And I was working on Airtable, and suddenly I start to get a lot of Slack messages. And it's 1 and 2 and 3, and suddenly it's like 70, 100, 200. This is very strange. What's going on here? Basically, I don't know what I had done in Airtable. Instead of sending out the confirmation email to just the mentees who were confirmed, I was in the process of sending a confirmation email to everyone who had applied to the program. A short moment of panic. The only thing that saved me was that at the time we were using a tool on a low tier of a subscription, Zapier, which had a 2-minute delay between triggering, here we have it, the automation and actually carrying out the action of the emails. So I was able to turn off the action of sending the email just in time, and avoid that 1,500 people would get a confirmation email and having to, message them. I'm very sorry, you're not accepted. So thankfully that was avoided. But
to give you the context is that people are really waiting for those results, and they really would like to be part. They really want to be part of the program. So we get a lot of emails after they got this rejection message, that's why, and asking questions, etc. So I remember that when I was sending those emails for the first time, that was my biggest fear.
Yes, exactly. So that was stressful. How about you?
It wasn't such a big thing, but also a problem. Also caused some problems. That I sent an email. I scheduled an email, but I scheduled it for the wrong day. So it was sent to people on the day of the event, before the event, asking for feedback. Like they should give us after the event. So I started to get messages. Okay, but I thought that the event is today. Did it happen like yesterday? What is it? I took a day off at work, and now I found out that it's like it happened yesterday. So that was the thing that caused some confusion. And luckily I was at work a bit earlier, so I was able to send another email saying, "Oh no, sorry, that is my mistake. That should be sent tomorrow. The event is today." So luckily for me, it was sent only to people in the program. So I have also alternative way to communicate them, and I knew that they are online, so they will get the next email. But I was like, oh no. So this is what I said about being detail oriented, that those kind of things can happen also if you are not fully focused. Or for example, it's on February, not January. So this is what caused this problem, that I didn't realize that we have the change of the month. So
you were a bit tired in preparation for the event.
Yeah, I think I was so overwhelmed about everything. So that can happen. And I think even people who are like I remember also getting some newsletter by mistake or some mistake. I don't remember what that was, sent by someone who's really like well known. So it happens also for this kind of people. But the thing is how you deal with it. If you just manage saying, okay, sorry for that was a mistake, or make fun out of it, you can sometimes do that. That's it can happen, like as you say, even with the biggest institutions that's trying to do their best to be very like professional, let's say. This can happen. We're only humans, so I also think that's if you're afraid of making mistakes, also block us from making a progress. So that's the thing I would.
I think that's a very good point. Especially beginners are often afraid of mistakes, and that it will look like they are incompetent. Even competent people, everyone makes these mistakes, and especially I would say in software development. And I would actually put if you're building something with NoCode and automation, you're building some sort of software. Bugs are a normal part. Bugs and errors are a normal part of the process. If you're trying to build something that's 100% proof, you will never ship it. So that's also not the solution. Of course, it's important to test. And I know that this is something tedious usually. Sometimes it's no fun because you're like, oh, I've tested this for the 15th time. Maybe I should just ship it. Maybe not test it one more time. So I'm not saying like ship without testing, but also not to be afraid of making mistakes.
Yeah, and you can do tests using your own data. So it's like you have to wait for other people's data. And I was laughing with myself some time ago because I was testing something and I sent to myself 42 emails before it was ready. So it was sometimes the process is really long. I believe it can be done in a shorter period of time with less emails. But yeah, it took me so much time. But it is a process. So next time it will be maybe 20 emails, and for the third time maybe 5, and it will be done. So so you want to do your work the best. So sometimes it takes time, but then you see that it's working smoothly, and you're like, yes, I did. As you said, you can be creative by that, and when you see that the machine is working. So for me, it's a great.
It's quite a nice shot of dopamine.
Yeah, it is. It is. I always like to start doing things, so I think that all of us like to do that, like our products, projects, like babies, however you call them, are working. People are using that. They're happy about the effect, so they have everything they need to. They are well informed, etc., etc. So
I think it's also nice, especially in the beginning, to see like, whoa, I never thought I would be able to do this. I'm actually able to do this. So I think that's a great boost of confidence.
So how do you start? Because I think we used a lot of words that can be difficult to understand, tools maybe you haven't heard about. So how to start and not to get crazy.
To come back to the main point here. One of the first advice I like to give is to start with as few tools as possible. 1, maybe 2, maximum 3. And that is because it's quite overwhelming of how many options and how many tools there are out there, and how many applications of each of those single tools there are as well. So really getting to know and to use a few of them, and really understanding also the logic and how automations are built. And then from there you can venture to different things. The second thing that also really helps is to have a very clear project, or even just a problem you're trying to solve with this automation. So
like to make dinner.
Exactly, like to make dinner, or what to buy in a shop. But actually, that's how we started at DareIT. We had this very clear case: how can we make the recruitment process easier? And from there, this automation spanned across the whole business. But that really helps to actually imagine, what do I actually need to get done. To give some help, what tools would I personally start learning with? Airtable. I think this is one of the most powerful tools out there. And then on top of that, I would add probably Zapier as a tool that is helping you connect Airtable with other tools. You have Zapier and Make. We've been talking about Make a little bit more. They are very similar tools. I'm a bigger fan of Make now, but I know that for any starters, I would recommend starting with Zapier, because I think the entry barrier is lower. So I'm going to stick with that. And then you can add, for instance, Webflow, if you want to focus more on the, let's say, user-facing, or want to build something that has a, let's say, website related to it. Alternatively, maybe looking into an email sending tool. I recommend SendGrid at this point. This is where so far I found that it links nicely with Airtable and Zapier or Make, but it could also be MailChimp. It could be MailerLite. There's a few options. So I would focus on that and basically start learning from there. Each of those tools have their own learning resources, so you can go on those websites and find out there. But also, of course, there are the forums you talked about, a multitude of YouTube videos, and kind of move from there. Most of those, or many of those materials, are actually free. This is, to be honest, how I learned. But to throw in here, I know that this can be quite overwhelming. And this is something I have seen and I've come across personally, or we have come across also within our community, not only with learning NoCode, but actually any of the new skills. So that's, by the way, why we decided to create a program to learn to use no-code tools and automations. It's called No-Code Makers, and it's currently open for signups. The course will happen in the end of May. So just a note here, if you want to have a bit more of a structured approach, so you want to have a comprehensive but not overwhelming way to learn about these tools, be it because you want to build a product your own, or because you just want to automate processes because you're a designer, or maybe you're a virtual assistant, or I don't know, you work in finance. The program will help you will guide you through learning the different tools, different use cases. And and actually as part of this, you'll be able to build your own project as well. Of course, it's not a must to do any structured program. There are many resources out there if you want to do this by yourself. And of course, you can also follow me on LinkedIn for some tips and tricks here and there. But that's my perspective on how to learn. And what would you recommend, especially looking back and how you learned? And what would you tell anyone who comes to you now as an expert? How would you recommend to learn?
Yeah, I think it depends. It depends if you have a project that you need to automate, so you can learn like by doing. This is what I did. But as I like the structured approach, so having this kind of program for me would be great, especially at the beginning when I didn't know exactly what I can do with it. Even now, I probably know only 1% of the possibilities that all of those tools gave us. So, I think that's having this kind of course at the beginning, and then you can go in your own direction, whatever you want to do and whatever you need. Because that's true. There is a lot of tutorials. A few weeks ago, I had a problem with something, so I remember that I spent few minutes or maybe 20 minutes, because they are sometimes really short, watching those videos, trying to understand how it all works. So it helped, but knowing this basic knowledge, that for sure you can get knowledge from that. But to understand, I think that the first step is the most difficult. If you have to understand how it works, I think all of us know this feeling that when you start to learn a new language, and especially if it has a new different alphabet than we use, and you are like, what is that? how do I read it? What is the trigger? What is the switcher, root or everything? And I think you can meet on those tools. So to have a support from a mentor, I think from the community, could be great. Working on a project together, maybe. So that's what's convinced me to also take part in some more structured program. But as you said, the forums, the tutorials, there's a lot of materials and people eager to help. So if you start and if you know what you want to solve, what kind of problem you want to solve, so you will get everything you need there.
This is also an advice I have for anyone who's starting to build an automation or something with no code and might be scared, like, oh, I have no idea where to start. We talked about earlier about pen and paper and about this now. It really helps to break down the process. May it be that you're building something new or that you're actually replicating something that you have done already. Break it down into little steps, focus on the problem that you're trying to solve, and then step by step. Let's focus on automating this or implementing this feature. Then from there, let's go to the next and the next. And of course, it helps to have the bigger picture in mind, so that maybe when you're making certain decisions, you can think, okay, I know I'm going to implement another automation, so maybe it's good to use tool X because I will need it there. But the thing with no-code tools, it's so easy to modify things that I wouldn't even recommend thinking too far ahead. You will change them, and it's normal to adjust and change these things, to come up with slightly new ones and in this way evolve the system, rather than going crazy and thinking about the whole product or business that I'm going to build and spending hours drawing this all out, and again going crazy on how you're going to solve it doesn't help anyone. It's overwhelming also for an expert, and really going step by step, I think, is the way to go.
I think it's a great summary. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I think you just have fun doing it. I have a huge amount of fun doing it. I love puzzles, so for me, it's like I like doing a puzzle. So I think that's the final thought to add. Anything from your end?
As I said, you don't have to know everything. Just go and learn how to sail. Of course, I have to use this sailing reference. But yeah, when I'm thinking about people who are doing like something for the first time, like ever, like going around the world or anything, they didn't know how to do that. Like with this, we have this, we have a lot of material, so it's not like you are left alone. You just you will have a lot of support. So just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Yeah.
So thank you, Anya, for this very fun and insightful conversation. We hope that we were able to shine some light into the darkness of no-code tools and automations, showing you that actually it's not so dark and it's not black magic. It's just action reaction, like Anya said. And
we're happy people doing that.
Exactly.
And still excited. So
very. And to show you this is a very useful skill to have, or very useful tools at your fingertips for your professional life, for your personal life, and as well as to show you a little bit how to get started. And of course, if you want to learn more, you want to learn how to do this in a more structured way, we invite you to join us for the No-Code Makers program, which sign-ups are open right now, and the program is happening in May and June this year. Yeah. So thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and have
See you
wonderful
there in this automation universe.
Yes.
No-code universe.
See you in the no-code universe. Bye-bye.
Bye.